Me and my wife were on our way down the highway. It was a freezing December night, 2 days before Christmas, and for the first time, we decided to travel back to Ohio to spend the holidays with her family. We had slept in this morning, and it was looking like we were not going to make it to our parents' cozy little cabin by our midnight cutoff, so I told her to start looking out the window for highway inns. We went miles spotting nothing, and were starting to get desperate, when we finally came across a little wooden shelter that looked abandoned, so I pulled over and went to grab my shovel, when to my surprise, there was an already shoveled trail leading right to that safe haven seeming four walls. I hopped back into the car and drove my way down this somehow shoveled path until we finally arrived right out front, reading a sign saying, "Stay the night and never leave." Very offsetting, but at this point, we were truly desperate. We made our way in, seeing a skinny woman with high shoulder blades awaiting us on a typewriter and a zombified-looking man dressed as some 50-style doorman. They just stared at us as we walked in and told us that the upstairs was available for $100 a night, which was a pretty ridiculous ask for this rundown old place. The doorman grabbed our bags and began to make his way up the stairs, so we reluctantly handed over a $100 bill to the lady on the typewriter and followed him up to a moldy-smelling and sketchy-looking room with a single twin mattress on the floor and a bucket we didn't even want to imagine the use for. As we saw this, me and my wife shot each other a "let's get the heck out of here" look and picked up the bags the doorman had just set down as we started our way down the stairs, where the woman stood in front of the door with her hair covering her face. I felt a split second of pain on the back of my head. I can only assume the doorman struck me with some sort of metal bat. My memories of that day and everything before slowly fade more and more every passing second as I stand here, disconnected from my body, stuck in this 50s doorman costume, watching my wife type "Snowstorm, snowstorm, snowstorm" over and over on that all too familiar sounding typewriter. As I looked out the window of my snowed-in cabin, seeing my broken-down car on the driveway, I came to the realization I would most likely have to take the bus into town if I didn't want to starve to death out in this country cabin and be labeled as some hermit old lady that got snowed in and couldn't even escape the four walls of her own home. I got my big jacket and boots on for the first time this season and made my way down the shoulder of the highway into the pitch-black darkness of this frigid winter night. I waited at the bus stop for what felt like hours with no other pedestrians or even cars passing by, going in or out of town. That was until he arrived. A tall, lanky man dressed in all-black trench coat approached me, appearing out of nowhere, and as he made his way towards me, step by step, I looked down and quickly realized he made no footsteps in the snow as he got closer and closer. "Hello, young lady," he said to me, staring down at me with his dark gray eyes. "Are you waiting for the bus?" He spoke up again. I nervously nodded my head, feeling unable to speak or even move my limbs. "I'm sorry to inform you, it will never come, but I offer you a ticket to a new home," as he pulled out a gold pocket watch and began swinging it back and forth in front of my face. I began to feel sleepy, my eyes getting heavy, and as I almost felt myself fall back into the snowbank, I realized the severity of the situation, and that I knew for a fact I didn't want to end up in the new home this man was offering. I struck him with a nasty uppercut, using all my might, and as soon as I made contact, he disappeared into dust, falling like the beautiful snowflakes from the sky. I grabbed his pocket watch as it fell from what was once his hand and ran back to my cabin as fast as my little old legs would carry me. When I returned, my table was filled with a feast of all the foods I could possibly imagine, with a single guest, a tall, lanky man with his hand out, awaiting what was his in the new home and life he had built for the both of us. It was the first month of winter, out in the mountains of our little village, and my parents decided the time had come for the last call to make a run into the nearest town to gather supplies for the upcoming cabin fever-inducing winter we were about to experience. I was left in the care of my older sister Emily, who never let the opportunity of our parents heading into town pass her by to sneak out and spend the night at her boyfriend's house. So before I knew it, I was left at home alone during the snowstorm. I boiled some piping hot water and poured myself a nice glass of hot cocoa with some non-gelatin vegan marshmallows to slowly melt on top. As I went to turn on the TV, I noticed the power was out and the emergency generator lights were on when I heard a growl that couldn't be the generator. It wasn't human and was unlike any animal I had ever heard, but I could certainly tell it was coming from some sort of sentient being, and it was making the walls of our woodlog home shake. I got my boots on and made my way out into the harsh blizzard, leaving the warmth of observing the winter wonderland outside of my window. I heard the growls coming from the nearest mountain, just 10 minutes from the village, so my curiosity got the best of me, and I made my way there. As I stood outside of the cave on the bottom of the mountain, I still heard the growls, and every time the sound was made, the entire ground shook, making my feet feel like they were on a frozen version of the bottom part of my mom's cozy massage chair. I made my way in, moving towards 2 red dots I could see in the distance. I got close enough to grab them, so I reached out to touch one with my index finger, and it quickly was covered by 2 squares of darkness, and my ears were filled with a monstrous roar, yelling, "Who dares disturb my rest?" I hightailed it out of that cave, only looking back out the window of my family home to see a monster made of snowballs and pine trees with 2 glowing red eyes stepping on and destroying my peaceful little village.